Alright, and we are done. What a beast. So that was quite a lot harder than I was expecting. So there are lots of gotchas that I encountered, and I'll try and remember all of them. I think the main thing to say is once it's basically hard to get the two plates together with the arms in and the side panels in, and if you try and rearrange anything after the fact, that's super hard. So really definitely want to try and get everything sorted that's going to be inside the copter before you try and assemble anything. So some additional bits that I did, I think, since the last video. So I mounted this GPS mount, and you can see that's screwed from the underside here, which obviously it can only do while the top plate is off. So I mounted that, and I got a GPS that'll go on there. I've got this little 3D printed support for the run cam, which actually I probably could have fitted after the fact, but it seems okay. And then I've got, if I flip it over, I've got the thumb mount, which I mentioned before. Don't forget the straps, obviously. You need to mount those. And then I think the other thing to say is that the LED, plugging in the LEDs is a bit of a faff, and I'll explain that just in a bit, but just suffice to say it's worth getting the motor order and the motor direction and the LEDs all working before you assemble everything. So I assembled it first. 3 motors were spinning the right direction, 1 motor was spinning the wrong direction, so I had to sort of rummage around inside and cross over the leads. And then the LEDs I had great problems getting working, so it's important to get those working first before assembling. Quick point about the LEDs. So these legs actually have 2 LEDs each in them, so actually 8 LEDs in total. And because these are profile LEDs, they're supposed to be daisy chained, and so it's important that you follow the numbering on the LEDs, on the LED sort of breakout panel under there. So use 1, 2, 3, 4. I used, I think, 1, 2, 4, 5, and then because a middle one was missing, there was a daisy chain missing in there, then it didn't work. So that was one mistake I made. The other mistake I made was, because there are 8 LEDs, you have to set the LED length to 8 to get them all to shine properly. And that was something that had confused me for a little while, but eventually sorted it out. So that worked, but was a bit of a faff. So in terms of assembling the plates themselves, the first thing to really be aware of is that there is this bottom plate, there is a right way up and a wrong way up, and it doesn't actually say in the instructions, but if you look on each of these arms, there's a little lug hole that the arm block fits into, and it's only on one side. And what you'll find is, to have the arms sloping up, there's only one way it can go, and if you get the plate the wrong way up, and needless to say I had it the wrong way up, there is no way to make these fit. The hole ends up being on the wrong side. I think Hexsoon probably should put holes on both sides. That would be an obvious thing to do, and then if you get it the wrong way up, who cares? Because I mean the plate is completely symmetrical both sides, apart from these little lug holes. So you've got to make sure that you get the plate the right way up, the bottom plate the right way up, so that the lug holes fit. The next thing, if I flip it back over, the next thing to say is that there's kind of, so what I ended up doing was fitting the motors, fitting top plate and bottom plate, and then trying to slide the motors in, and that worked okay, but actually it was you couldn't really feed the wires in very easily. So you could do that, but you kind of, I think the easiest thing to do is lay it out on the floor so all of the arms are near where they need to be, and then sort of loosely assemble top plate, bottom plate with a couple of these screws in, and then hopefully you can then slide the arm in once it's sort of assembled, and the arm has a definite stopping point. So I think another thing Hexsoon could do is perhaps mark on the arm where how far it needs to go in to be fully seated. I've actually measured all of these, so they're all the same length, so I'm sort of confident that they're in the right place, but it's not obvious. So what I then did, so I kind of had it loosely assembled. With the motor wires connected, with the LEDs connected. If I'd thought about it, I would have done the LEDs in the right place, tested the motor direction first, and then I slid the arms in, and then with it still loosely assembled, I clicked each of these side plates in. Now these side plates, not, again, another thing that's not obvious, these side plates, there's a paper covering which actually does come off with some difficulty, but it does come off, and it reveals this rather nice sort of shiny black thing, but it's a little bit of a faff to get off, and it wasn't obvious to do that. The other thing to say is that this plastic here is quite hard and a little bit brittle, and I managed to break one of these side panels, so you have to be a little bit careful there. And then the other thing I found was that one of these side panels didn't fit very well, and I had to just rub away with a file at a couple of the slots just to get it to fit well. Worth checking all of that before you start trying to click it in place. So then once I had that done, clicked it in place, and then I could tighten up the nuts and then the nuts and bolts, and then add the rest. So quite a faff, but I got there in the end. And then I cut a little hole in the back for these motor leads, if I so what I'm going to do now is mount the Nora in the middle here, and I can probably do that quite quickly. The other thing I did, which saved my bacon a few times, was number. I used a little permanent pen to number the motor inputs so that I could get those the right ones in the right place. So I've got one here, signal wire on the bottom, one goes in there, two in there, three in there, four in there. Then 5 was the profile LED clock, and you remember white is ground and black is signal or clock, strangely, and then brown is the actual signal, again white on top. And I've got the power connector which goes in there, and then I've got my little CAN sensor for the basher monitor, and then I've got the connectors for the VTX and the camera and the ESC telemetry, which I won't plug in right now, but I'll just show those all working. And if I power it up, put the battery on, nice little beep from the motors. And arming, and now you can see all of the LEDs flashing yellow, which is perfect. And I think if I just whack a USB cable on here, if that works, maybe not. Let's see. Let's see. That works, and then I can just do quick motor test. There we go. All motors spinning in the right order, and you can see the red, green, blue flashing on the LEDs, which is nice. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Works well, but quite a big faff to set up. I think one of the things I might recommend to Hexsoon is a way of holding these arms in place while you assemble it. Like, if there was a way to hold the arm in place without the top plate on, that would make life so much easier. And I think probably there is. I think just, you know, a couple of little cutouts, and you could probably use a zip tie or something like that just to hold the arms in place just while you're assembling, and that would just make life so much easier. I mean, I spent a good couple of hours weaving and tinkering and just trying to get it all to fit, and I got there in the end, but it was quite frustrating at times, and wasn't sure it was all going to come out right, but it seems to have. So pleased with that. So what I'll do next is I'll mount the camera. I probably won't mount the thumb yet, but I will mount the GPS. So the GPS here should fit on top there, and also I'll need a radio receiver, so I've got a crossfire, nice big crossfire receiver that I'm going to stick on the back here, and that'll sort of hang over, and then I'll be ready to put some props on and start trying to get an initial tune on it. So I think that should be fun. Okay, thanks for watching.